My name is Waldemar, and I'd like to talk about my tool to deal with Postgres database. The deal is named SEAL. This is definitely a flight presentation. The plan is as follows. The most interesting point is this one, why Perl? Because yesterday evening I realized that the Perl didn't exist in my presentation at all. So I decided to add, because the tool is written in Perl, but it's not going about Perl, it's going about the tool. So I add this point, why Perl, to be more proper to this conference. Introduction. I'll be talking about writing, preparing software for companies which is connected with database. I chose many years ago Postgres as this SQL, so I limited to only Postgres and GUI database programs for companies. It's important because some considerations are connected with the context. When we look at companies and writing programs for them, we have fundamental dichotomy. It means that on one hand, when we want software is safe, reliable and stable, we understand that developers need a lot of time. On the other hand, when we want, especially this point, that software has tightly following the changes in business environment, it results that programmers, developers don't have time, sometimes no time at all. And I'd like to, my experiences this year, in June, it's 20 years I started to write this program, so I have some celebration this year. And 20 years of writing programs very closely to customers, very closely. In fact, we know Agile term now, I use it at the beginning, 20 years ago already. How to manage this dichotomy? I'm not claiming that this is very wise and like that, but generally we can, looking through this way of approaches to this dichotomy, we can see 3GL programs. We see some software houses try to use a 4GL method, which it was invented in the 80s in database, as I remember. And we know that exists DSL programming also. Because my solution is connected but with this fourth approach, I won't be, I don't explain this way now. This fourth approach now. DSL means domain-specific language. It means it's not general language like Perl, like C++. It's a language invented to solve very small part of, for instance, SQL is this type of language. It solves on SQL creating, deleting data connected with database, relational databases. Okay. I don't. When we look at this this kind of software, which I think that this 4 points should be analyzed. Safeness, reliability, and stability, time implementation, implementation of time, stack customization. I mean, how software is prepared at the beginning to company's needs. And 4th point, ability to follow business environment changes. It's the claw of business problems. Here is my gauge of these 4 points according to the, I call monolithic programming as a one big exec file, or at least or few, in opposite to the third GL programs written with many libraries spread over operating system. I think, in my opinion, it is monolithic programs. When I look at the market offer, the first 2 points are very good, but customization and ability to follow business environment changes is very poor. As we can see, this kind of software is sold because companies usually have obligation, public obligations, and have to fulfill them, and buy the software to fulfill. Of course, my statements are very sharp. However, normal software is some mixture of this few approaches. Library-driven programming, I call when we try to make some functionality delegate to the submodules, modules, for instance, in Perl. And when I think this kind of software is not very good in E, because yes, points 3 and 4 are much better than the first approach. However, the cost is the first and the second point. And my proposition now. My proposition is, let's focus at DSL in G-oriented programming. I thought a few hours thinking about how to call it, because DSL is very known. However, my proposition is some kind of version of DSL. You can compare somehow to this differentiation between object programming and objectively oriented programming. The difference is between both solutions this way, that you can write object oriented. I'm not sure.
Yes.
I say what I need. Yes.
Maybe it's an idea if you give Polish, because I think most of the people here are Polish people, and you're trying to make us also understand the talk. But I think having the slides in English already gives us a lot. But just a suggestion. Might maybe give it to you.
Okay, I take it as I shouldn't go from my road prepared. I put my proposition as few axioms. Application is built as a set of elementary tasks. the elementary task in my approach is that the task is entity that represents a double complete task both for end user and developers. It's very important. It means that developer and end user both can work on problem. So developers can focus on the problem of client, and client can very quickly get exchange feedbacks from the developers. What does it mean task? When we look at company software, we can see that people open window, some task, some window from the program, from menu, write some data, save the data, and close. And we can, in business software, very easily, relatively, divide all the processes into tasks. The second axiom is each of the elementary tasks is programmed with its own DSL. What does it mean? It means that if we have to prepare task connected with a GUI window, we should have special DSL language to prepare the window. It's not, I'm not talking about form, creating form. I'm talking about task which is connected with writing data and changing data as a whole. For instance, another type of DSL could be used when we generate reports. The same, we should have special DSL language to create reports. We know that this kind of DSL are online. The third axiom is each of the tasks is run by the proper DSL engine. And at this point, it means that we have no compilation at all, because compilation is our enemy. And engine should be like, engine means some kind of virtual machine or some kind of runtime, different various names for this engine. One of the positive results of this approach is that any changes can be run immediately after we do them. And the fourth, the last, each of the DSLs is easy to manage. What does it mean? We can find sometimes that DSL should be similar to English language. My experience is that it doesn't matter what, in fact, what we write inside as a DSL under one condition. Developer have to very easily manage the code. My program is this kind of that for normal tasks we should have only 60 to 80 lines of code at most. This is general definition of normal task. I will show some example later. This axiom is connected with general rule that if we have to achieve 80% of our goal, we can use only 20% of our efforts. The rest cases should be easily delegated to plugins. This way, because I assume that engines are very stable and very stable and reliable. So we don't lose the high stability and safeness, but on the opposite side, thankfully we have very proper DSL. We have also good implementation and good ability to follow business environment changes. The main idea is to get such complete system to drive on both levels what developers and users have to do to create GUI database applications. Also desktop and internet. I've mentioned a little about previously. Now again, normally in companies people make this kind of stuff, starting from menu, fetching data from database, displaying data, preparing documents, reports, finding data, modifying data, firing other tasks, and closing tasks. That's it, that's all. So, it's not very many. And my tool, it works now since 2006, the first version. This is some task controlling. Here is written that some operations are performed before task is open, some tasks are performed after task is closing, and when record is displaying on screen. So we can use here mouse events, keyboard events to make anything new. Here is the list of all, not to, of course, remember, but I found that it's enough to prepare, I think, 90% of operation. So the language which my DSL is with this 32 commands. Here is the example of the code, the SL. It's very coloring. And here is the window generated by this script. It's a not 27 because we should altogether it's 23 lines, even less. So it's here. Okay, next. Some relations. Here is the name title of the window. It's just taken. Please see, this is a general variable. In fact, the first column. So the name means once, and in the bracket number 1, because the first record is line. This 7 means I have 7 rows. This next. This variable item from the SQL command, which is generated automatically, is mapped to the first 0, in fact, variable in the first column. The name is going to the variable first. This is the first column, and here. What is not written here, I come to this. This is another. It's important because here is written by this one that you can change data. What does it mean? Seal automatically know how to write the data. For instance, if I add some column to the and write another variable here at the end, for instance, automatically is generated in the database special function which governs the process of updating, deleting, and inserting data. So, developer has nothing to do, don't have to do anything, just fulfill this file. What is here more? Oh, this is very, very, I think, nice feature, because writing this few characters, range equal 0, 1, give the possibility to write special line to filtering data. Just this line. As the behavior of what we can write and how we can filter data depends on what you write here after this range. Here is written integer. It means that we can write here integer number and, for instance, range. Find me data from 2 to 4, so it will be displayed these 3 lines. The same. This is connected with SQL, but it's not directly. This is somehow memorized technique that if I like write here I like, it means that upper and lower characters are not important. In this way, for instance, a program can find all words I write in the line below table. And this is another kind of, very often in the case of databases and databases using in companies, we need one-to-many relationship. It's connected with every form of our documents. Every document has header and position in it. How I solved this problem very frequently appearing. I write two files because earlier I said one task, one file. So programmer can work with one file. And the file name 1 I showed you before. It had 23 lines, and the second is too many. It's enough to write the name child here and in the main, in the file 1, write this line where we can call the task with position. It's enough to write these two things to get one-to-many relation screen that the first is mapped to the upper part and the lower, where are they? It depends on the writing and parameter top, how is position of this position file. This is here is example of what we can do. We can do much more, but here is an example how we can, for instance, highlight or polarize some rows. It's enough to write specific expression with the pure Perl expression, and we can get that such effect. Here is written that if variable 2, which on position is this variable 2 contain word Perl, you should display the row as background row as a green, and opposite side with white. So we have 22 lines, and we have altogether even less, because 22 minus 4 is 18. So we get full working screen using 50 lines. And these are collected 13 screens taken from a working program. So you can generate very, very complicated structures very easy. Why I use Perl? Here are listed some reasons. When I started to think to write the application, I took some languages and performed some basic operation, taking data from database and transform some expressions and this kind of reading files. And Perl was the best in all categories, so I took Perl as this tool. But especially in using another very nice feature of Perl is that it's always has it always has a compiler inside when we run. So very easily we can add some plugins and so on. And I use it very intensively. For instance, one of the problems, because the GUI was GUI library which was used here was Win32 library, which is very it doesn't support UTF-8. So because I had to write some program with multi-languages possibilities, I prepared some plugin with from the other Perl libraries. And in this way I could achieve multi-languages program. Another example is fiscal machine in Poland. It's easy to plug some extensions. Now I'm preparing the same kind of engine for generating internet application for companies. In my opinion, it should work taking the same code. I've already achieved that database cooperation is on the same level. So I don't use at all such very fashion DBIX libraries, because in my approach the function is much more safe and give much more usability compared to the, for instance, I tried but when they tried to invent somehow wheel, for instance, if DBIX library, as in my conversation, one guy said that, for instance, view is not as natural as in SQL. And I asked, why? Because SQL is very clear, very nice, and very good. Why we should create another layer of abstraction instead of using that, what is very good. Some results I have, but my framework is too much Perl, so it's not on the line. This color pictures I've shown you are not possible in normal editors, because normal editors don't support very unusual grammar. So I had to write my own. But I mean about this second part, that developers should have a tool which can easily write their programs. For instance, my ID can create big database structures generated automatically. It's enough to give some general names, like in Oracle topic names. Thank you.
Dostępne do ściągnięcia, można download.
Almost. Why almost? The program is packed with active state because distribution was the easier, much easier. But it's difficult for me to write proper documentation, and this is the only against.
I'd like to try it, and for example, web.
I'll give it. On my side, which is here, I think that if someone is interested in relatively 1-2 weeks, I can give.
Wersja PSGI, czy plac można było wystartować?
No. This is desktop. This connect directly to database. No. This is not. You mean about the web version? This is connected with the fast CGI here. I think that for you it's easy to exchange into the. But it's not the same. Not yet finished my program. Application web, but so much parallel.